for IR technology outside in the foyer that you're welcome to go experience. Microsoft has brought through some technology that you're welcome to explore to better understand the fourth industrial revolution, some virtual reality technology as well. So during our breaks, you are welcome to go and explore that technology. But for now, please help me welcome Ms. Ayanda Bui as well as Dr. Arno Low.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Can you all hear me clearly? Um, we've built 3 weeks on this and even sold it this morning. And if we had 4 hours, I could print something and show you exactly how it works. But what is amazing about, and this is but one type of a 3D printer, you get huge ones, and you'll see them as Ayanda presented up with a 3D printing. It's not difficult to do at all once you have calibrated the machine. And I must add now after today. If you know your trigonometry, if you know a bit of physics and you know a bit of chemistry, it's not difficult to use this at all. We've got an X, a Y, and a Z axis that this printer works with. Now, if you are familiar with a glue gun, it's exactly the same principle that is used. At the bottom here, there's an extruder that squirts out this plastic filament. The filament goes in here on top. It goes through the Bowden tube, which is a little pipe, and then it squirts out the melted plastic onto what we call the printing bed. And then it draws whatever figure that you want. So those figures are freely available online. Nowadays, graphic designers also design three-dimensional things that you can print. And I've even got prints of statues that were scanned in with a 3D scanner in the Louvre in Paris, which you can put onto scale, send it to the printer, and then it prints. It works with G-code, so all that one needs is the filament. I usually buy mine at computer shops in the vicinity. But nowadays, they don't sell the printers anymore. You have to order them online. This one had a price of about 5,000 Rand, which is not that huge for the quality that it delivers. And then you get bigger ones that can go up to millions. I know at a few departments of UJ, we already have 3D printers, bigger and smaller. The boards, everything is assembled, and one can buy different colors and sizes of plastic, or filament, what we call it. This is then extruded through here, and this thing moves like a robot, and it draws and prints everything for us here. If I could connect it now, as I said, it will take a while, but then it will print, and it gets quite smelly because of the burning plastic. But afterwards, the bed has got a temperature a bit lower than the actual 210 degrees and up to 275 degrees of the extruder. And as soon as the plastic touches the bed, which runs at about 55 degrees Celsius, it starts cooling down. So it prints in layers, and as it goes higher, the bed cools down so that the actual structure sets on the bed. What I have here is printer's tape or painter's tape, which you buy because people usually put it over the board to help to loosen the whole printed artifact that you have at the end. Some people put painter's tape over and rub it with a bit of surgical alcohol just to make the adhesion a little bit better on the printer bed. But nowadays, kids play with this. If schools hadn't opened today, I would have had a child here to show you what they print and what they do with it. And that's all that I want to say now. Ayanda will show you examples and how it is used in the world these days. Thank you, Ayanda.
Oh, this one works. Good morning. Had no idea a microphone was this heavy. Okay, so I'm a Yanda boy and I am with the Cat Lab. So what we do at the Cat Lab is basically we just have fun and we get paid to have fun. So lucky us. So today I'll be talking to you about printing your world and living in it, basically through 3D printing. Now, 3D printing is something that I was not aware of until a couple of years ago, or months ago even. So what it basically is just a practice of printing whatever you have collected. Imagine printing a t-shirt or a presentation given by an intern. And instead of putting it into paper, you want to create a module, you want to create a model out of it. So that is what 3D printing works. Instead of printing flat surfaces, we actually create 3D models and stuff that you can actually interact with. So to start with, oh, did I do something? Oh, it works. So firstly, before I start, I'd like for everyone to imagine a world where you don't only print pictures of your favorite band on a t-shirt, or you print a presentation given by an intern you don't really care about, or notes from your lecture, but where you can print fashion or clothes that you wear. Everything from your dress, to your shoes, to your accessories, to the food that we consume on a daily basis, or food that we consume when we're feeling bougie and we're going out with our friends to impress people that we don't know, or prosthetics that we use on human beings or animals, where you don't only print this, but you also print infrastructure, bridges, roads, also houses. Not only that, but we can also print cars that we'll be driving, not only in the future, but cars that are actually printed right this moment and that people are driving in this current moment. So all of this is possible through 3D printing. Now, 3D printing, what it is additive manufacturing or printing. So what it says, instead of copying the exact copy of what you see, it adds on to the material and it creates something that you can actually work with. So what this provides you with is not only a copy of something that you saw on paper, but it is something that you can actually work with. For example, if you want to print the bridge over the A parking, you can actually create that. You can print it into something that you can actually touch, interact with, or you can actually create your very own design or add in designs that you want to the bridge. So it can be absolutely anything. 3D printing is the only printing that I believe you can go absolutely crazy with. So whenever I try to explain to my friends what 3D printing is, they always tell me, well, it's like printing paper, is it not? Or it's like building a house. And I always say, not really. Imagine so instead of sitting down with Lego pieces and trying to build a house, you just click on your play machine and you just go sit wherever, you go have fun, and the house creates itself, basically. So I will show you a video quickly of this guy here. Just a brief explanation of what 3D printing is. He does a much better explanation. Find it on YouTube. So these are some videos to check out should you have interest afterwards. Well, he basically said the same thing I said. It just comes from a male's voice. So just imagine all the stuff I just said now on here. What goes on here is a system that you put in, all the information that you'll put in, and you code it, and you decide what you want the printer to come out to make. So you can make everything from a ring for yourself. If it does not finally put a ring on it, you can actually print your own ring, or you can build your own throne just to hold on to the Game of Thrones memories. You can have it in your house or wherever you please. So whatever you want, you can get the blueprint from the internet, put it on here on a memory card. It just goes over. It just goes, so you put it over here, and then that's it. So you get the information, you put it on here on a memory stick, and it just generates. It just prints everything, and you do not have to touch it any further. That is if you have the right settings, and if you don't, it smells like you burning plastic. It can be quite uncomfortable at first, but you get used to it, and it just progresses. So you can just pause it for now. Thank you. So video printing comes in, printers or 3D printers come in a variety of sizes. They're actually printers that are much smaller than this one, and some are very big. Again, printers can be used to print absolutely anything or most things. So we can print something as small as a ring or earrings, or something as big as a house or entire city. So the printer on your left, on your right there is a picture that they have, a printer that they've produced in China. So this is the printer that they're hoping to use in order for them to build a whole new 3D printed house, 3D printed city with houses that will withstand storms and earthquakes. So that's going to be quite interesting. So what happens here typically is that when you're printing, what we were trying to print here is a case for an iPhone cover, or an iPhone holder. So what you do when you print is you see the picture of what is happening actually in real time on the printer, and you also get to see the code. So should you have anything going wrong, the code will tell you that you have something wrong, and you do have the option of stopping and figuring the code out, or just asking somebody to help you with the code, or just again going on the internet and getting a blueprint that you can work better with. So there are a number of things that we can print, that we can use for printing. So again, we can print fashion, we can print food, furniture, we can use 3D printing in education, we can use it to create cars, planes, and even for space travel. We can also use it for architecture and for medicine and science. So now in fashion. So 3D printing in fashion is not very new. I was disappointed when I found this out, but it is hailed as the future of fashion. However, 3D printing is something that has been done for a couple of years now, and a lot of fashion designers are actually taking part in 3D printing, as it is hailed to be a sustainable way of creating fashion. It also allows fashion designers and fashion houses to be more creative and create biodegradable fashion. So this is the new age or new trend in fashion that people are actually looking into. So 3D printing, typically you would use the same printer, but you'd use a different type of filament in order for you to create fashion. So what you'll see here in the next video, sorry, I have a couple of videos. So in the next video is an example of a university that is developing fabric that can be 3D printed. So the idea with this is that you can create biodiverse or biodegradable material. So whatever we put on right now is 100% recyclable in the future. So unlike having to wear stuff that we'll get rid of and that goes to waste and God knows where afterwards, we can actually have clothes that will completely disappear and cause no harm to the environment whatsoever through 3D printing. And when I talk about 3D printing, I do not only talk about high-end fashion or things that you can wear to the Durban July or the Met Gala, but most fashion designers are actually producing everyday wearable clothes. Everything from jackets to shoes to dresses that you can wear to work or when you're taking your kids to play in a park. So what they're doing in this university is not only developing biodegradable fabric, but they're also developing fabric that will respond to the person wearing it. So if you wear the fabric, so there won't be no such thing as getting a scratch because your dress is too tight or sweating and all of that, because the dress that you will put on will be especially suited for your body type and for your figure and for the temperature that your body exists in and all of that. So that's the fabric of the future, and that's what they're looking for. So perhaps in the future, we'll all have one dress that we wear every day because it will never sweat and will never smell bad. And if we decide to get rid of it, it will not harm a dolphin somewhere. it will literally become compost. So amazing. So, and the next video is a short video of one of the fashion designers who's 3D printed a whole look based. She 3D printed a whole look and she debuted it on Fashion Week. I'm not sure which. So that's on the next video. So what she does here is she showcases dresses that she's already developed using her own 3D printer. So one of the things that she says here is that 3D printing clothes will be something that everyone will be able to do in their own houses. So it'll no longer be something that you'll have to go to the CAT lab in order to experience. So if you need a cute dress, you don't have to come to us. In order for us to print your dress, you can literally print it wherever you are. And because 3D printers are slowly but surely becoming very accessible, they're very much accessible to speak of already, but they're slowly becoming very affordable for everyone. So we could literally live at a point in our age where you do not have to carry luggage in order for you to travel, but you can carry a 3D printer and print whatever you need wherever you are. So this is her collection that she released this year. So all of the clothes that she is debuting on the runway and all on the drag over there is 3D printed. Again, the clothes that she makes in this video are runway clothes. I can't see anybody wearing these to campus every day, unless you're brave. If you decide to do that, it's fine too. However, she is developing clothes that you can wear every day. So also, these are clothes that also respond to the person wearing it. So not only that, imagine having control over what you put on your body, not just according to trends. If you like a certain thing, imagine having to design a dress all by yourself that you will love and that you will not have to share the same look with anyone else. You can be completely individualistic in the designs that you make, and then you can also save the world or something while you're at it. Okay, the video is a bit long, so I will just pause it just here, sorry. So 3D printing in fashion is, again, is on the up and up. Unfortunately, we have actually some people who are exploring 3D printing in fashion in South Africa. However, they're not as big as most people in other countries. So what we see now is that 3D printing is not only limited to fashion, but it expands to even food. So we can literally print food that we eat. I told my friends about this and they said I was psycho because last year I was telling people to eat insects and this year I'm telling people to print food. So I promise you it's a real thing. So in the future you might be watching MasterChef and Gordon Ramsay is probably going to be screaming at, well, that's not MasterChef, is it? Well, but they're going to be screaming at a 3D printer instead of someone else. So what happens here is that unlike a filament that we put on here, which is made with plastic, you basically take all the food that you'd eat on an everyday basis. Imagine broccoli. If you want to manipulate your kids into eating broccoli, you can actually make a smoothie out of, you can blend your broccoli or whatever you want to eat. Have it be in a liquid or paste form, and then put it on the 3D printer. And then it squirts, unlike the filament, what it does, it has food and it deposits food on the surface here. So instead of having a statue, you can have a plate or you can have a dish that you can show to your child. And it is hailed as being, so finally, parents can have a way of actually manipulating their kids into eating vegetables because they will finally look cool. So food that is 3D printed is said to be customizable. Obviously, you will not have carrots look like carrots anymore. So you have your food look exactly the way that you want. And not only that, it is also said that it could potentially be the answer to malnutrition and food insecurity around the world. So how this works, or how the idea works, is that instead of actually transporting food to people that are food insecure through ways that are typical, where the food will probably get there and it's rotten and it's expired and it's not in good form to be eaten, we can actually 3D print food and give them to the people in small packages and have them be like very healthy, really small packets of food that people can eat when they need it. So imagine space food in all those movies when people had very small pieces of stuff and they're like, I just had a whole lunch. So we could literally create food like that will come in very compact sizes, but just as healthy as food that you'd have in a big plate. And also, 3D printed food is said to be a healthier alternative to the food that we eat now, because typically this is food that is not processed. So 3D printed food, you can print chips. I don't know how that would taste, but what is popular now is printing vegetables. So we're seeing more and more people actually eat vegetables and their fruits, because they get to actually play with it more, and they get to interact with it, and they get to print it. So it's nicer to actually finally eat healthy food. You can print junk food as well, but it is advised against, because the fat will actually ruin your printer. So for the first time, we have something that will actually say no to printing junk food, to eating junk food. And also, I read an article last week about how 3D printing could be an example of how not to feed the world. Not to say that 3D printing is not a good way to feed the world, but 3D printing can be used as an example to show the world that you can feed people using very little resources and using very little money, and also give them something that is not processed, that is not contaminated, and that is 100% organic if you want it to be, and that is 100% healthy. Because what we get now, especially when we feeding people, or people that we assume to be poor or malnutritioned or food insecure, we give them food that is not healthy because it's cheaper. With 3D printing, we can actually give people food that is absolutely healthy at the same price at faster rates. So there's a restaurant in England. There's a restaurant in London. So what they do is print food that you eat. So if you happen to visit London this year or next year, I think they'll be open for a good couple of years. This is a nice place to visit. So at this restaurant, everything in here is 100% 3D printed, except for the computers, of course. So the food you eat in this restaurant is printed. The utensils you eat with are printed. The plates, the chairs, the tables, everything is 3D printed. So you don't only eat food that is 3D printed, you actually interact with 3D printed everything. And once you get there, you do not only eat the food, but you also participate in making the food. So you can go in there and make food and make crazy patterns and decide what you want to put in it and decide how you want to eat it. So it's not just food or restaurants, it's an entire experience. However, one of the problems here is a lot of people are not exposed to this. This is fairly new. I mean, the UN is still trying to get people to eat insects. So 3D printed food is a long way away. However, it is a great possibility. And it might be something that we might be trying to do at the Cat Lab. So we might invite a couple of people over for dinner. So this would be nice. And next. So not only do we have food that is printed, there's also furniture that is printed. And this new era of being minimalistic, a lot of people are printing furniture that you can use for more than one purposes. So what we get is something that is called Japanese apartments. Very small spaces where you can have one item of furniture that you can use as a bed, as a table, as a chair, as a mat, as a door, and as anything you absolutely want it to be. So what this does, it limits the space, and it allows people to live in very small spaces, and it also allows people to explore what they want their homes to look like. And if you're into the minimalistic movement, this is something to try. So only one of the interesting things about 3D printing furniture, there is a company in South Africa that actually 3D prints furniture, and they print their furniture 100% out of recyclable bottle caps. So the bottle caps that you'll be throwing away today, maybe going to them, and they will create a couch or a headboard out of it. So that is something incredible that is happening in South Africa right now. And their furniture is also pretty affordable. So it's something nice. So in education, 3D printing in education is something of a high point, or something that has been debated a lot. Because we wonder if there's space for 3D printing in education, or if 3D printing should be emphasized in education. So what 3D printing does in education, whether it is for higher learning institutions or for primary schools and high schools, it basically has the same effect. And what we see happening is that students tend to interact when they're teaching and learning. So no longer do you have your teacher tell you that the heart has valves and all of those pipes going on. You actually see it, you touch it, you tear it apart, and you put it together. And that leads to students actually getting a higher mark and actually remembering stuff better. And if we have students that have difficulties learning in one way, we actually now can introduce more than one ways of teaching and learning in our schools, which is something that has proven to be very effective in Switzerland, where they have been introducing more and more of 3D learning in their science classes. Now, not only that, 3D printing includes the marginalized teachers and learning. Again, most students that have learning disabilities tend to, if you can't roll with the pack, you're left behind. So with 3D printing, we create something that those students will be a part of, because not only do they decide what they want to print or they interact with the stuff that is printed, they also form a part of a community that everyone is involved in, instead of just having one person stand in front of a chalkboard and telling what everyone else should be doing. And there's also improved understanding and inclusion in the design process, and there's also interaction, and the students tend to explore what technology is in the different fields of study. So what we see here is that when students, according to their subjects, are introduced to 3D printing, they tend to actually print stuff that answer to subjects that they study. So it's not if you're doing your history channels or if you're doing your history subjects, you may be able to print ornaments and artifacts and actually interact with those and still not be left behind if you're doing your sciences, because you'll also be able to print anything. So whatever subjects 3D printing is able to cater for. So not only that, so last year at the Cat Lab, we printed a periodic table for Braille students. So students were able to, so students with that were visually impaired were actually able to interact with a periodic table without having somebody tell them what it looks like or them assuming what it looks like. So those students that are visually impaired actually were in the same level as the students who could see perfectly. Not only that, but 3D printing in education has proven to be cheaper for students. If we consider the student demographic at the University of Johannesburg, it may be very difficult for some students to buy artifacts that you may need. For anthropology, for example, if they tell you you need to buy Naledi's skull in order for you to examine it, for anthropology or for archaeology, not all students may afford that, and not all students afforded buying molecule models for their science or their chemistry classes. So what happened last year is that the chemistry department, if I'm not mistaken, had printed molecules for all of their students, and that worked up about 25 rands, which is considerably cheaper compared to the 400 rands that the students would have to use in order for them to buy the molecules themselves. So with 3D printing, not only do we allow the students to actually interact with their material, we allow for students to access the stuff that they need for their classes at cheaper rates, and also it is available for everyone. So if something goes missing, we're able to print and print and print again until everyone in the class is satisfied. Very good. So again, as I was saying, 3D printing answers to all subjects regardless of the field. Students are able to print. Now the question is, whenever I talk to people about 3D printing, the assumption comes back as it's a science thing. That's what students in the sciences, it only caters for students in the sciences. However, it does not work like that. Because now we can 3D print food, students that do cookery classes can actually print food as well, or they can print stuff that they need in order for them to serve their restaurants. We could have students from the SDH, the SDH actually print 100% biodegradable restaurants and print 100% printable food that they can eat. And not only that, we can have archaeology and anthropology students at this university create whole modules of what they believe dinosaurs looked like, for example. We can have English students create books that are readable for Braille books that we can actually 3D print for everyone to see. So the possibilities when it comes to 3D printing in the classroom are absolutely endless. The idea is to just have the students explore in whatever module, in whatever subject or school of thought they come from. So 3D printing is not only limited to things that we can hold, but recently we've had a lot of 3D printing of cars. So we are moving in the age where I won't have to use a taxi anymore because we'll finally have cars that I can afford. So a lot of companies such as Toyota and even BMW are printing cars that are not only electric cars, but that are fully 3D printed. Everything is 3D printed, including the wheels and the engine. So a friend of mine said you can't 3D print everything, the engine will have to be created the same way, but you can, because 3D printers can print everything from plastic, food, steel, and even concrete. So we are right now in an age where we can have 100% printable cars that are going to be reasonably cheaper and that are going to be completely biodegradable, which is awesome for everyone. So what happens in cars is that most companies are moving towards creating 100% printable cars. However, most of them are actually using print to repair cars basically. That's it. And also aeroplanes and for space. In aeroplanes, what companies do now, instead of getting rid of the entire aeroplane, they use 3D printed pieces or objects to fix aeroplanes with faults, or to make sure to upgrade airplanes from what they look like in terms of looks. You can print new chairs, new color, new everything. So that's what they're moving towards. So the next time you're in an airplane, chances are a piece of its engine, a piece of its wing, the seat you're sitting on is probably 3D printed. So one of the most interesting things I found was that we are 3D printing stuff that go into space. So this is not only stuff in space. So what NASA is doing is 3D printing pieces to repair to use for repairs on the ships that they send out of space. And not only this, NASA is not only printing on planet Earth, they are printing outside of planet Earth. So not only are we out here talking about building villages and cities in the world, but we also in conversations, or there's also conversations about building cities and the world on the moon or on Mars. So this is something that is happening already, and a lot of companies or NASA actually getting into building homes outside of space. So in this month's copy of very interesting magazine. So it looks like a U magazine, but it says very interesting. So you actually have an article that talks about all of these things and what 3D printing does out of space. So they've now printed a whole lettuce overseas. They've grown a whole lettuce, not overseas, I mean, out of space. And now they're actually doing homes and cars that will make it possible for human beings to exist out of space. So that is research. And now always whenever I think of this, I think about if we are in an age where it is possible to build homes and grow food out of space, then that means that we are in a position to actually create a better world using 3D printing in here, doing things that we can actually use on an everyday basis. So not only this, 3D printing is something that we can use to understand the world beyond planet Earth, that we can use to actually travel to space and to build communities out of space. So perhaps we are living in an era where moving to the moon is not going to be so expensive anymore because everything is 3D printed. Well, we might as well all go if you want to go. So in architecture, this is where 3D printing has been most popular outside of education. So the idea with this is to create 3D printing in ways that will suit or benefit people in their everyday lives. So 3D printing has been used to create concrete and metal bridges. So there is this huge bridge in the Netherlands. It's not in South Africa, though. We haven't printed anything in South Africa. So that's the bridge. Those are the bridges that they're actually using, and they're testing to see if they can actually withstand the weather, if they can withstand the people using them on a daily basis. So actually printing bridges and roads and houses is something that is actually happening now. And they have proven to be much cheaper compared to the material that we use in most cases to build the roads right now, to build the infrastructure that we have. And also on that, there's also affordable houses that they're doing in the US. So it is apparently $4,000 to have a printed house that can house an entire family, and that is reasonably cheaper than the asking price for a regular home. So whenever I talk about 3D printed houses, I always get somebody saying, well, great, that means that we can print houses in South Africa and we'll no longer have to deal with shacks and stuff like that. So as affordable as it is to print in other countries, having to print houses is a huge task. So that would mean that there is a lot of investment that would have to be done with 3D printing. However, with the nature of 3D printing and the fact that you can print your own 3D printer and another one and another one and another one, we could actually be in a position where we print houses using 3D printers. And these houses, I'll show you in the video just now, are actually much better in the way that they look, in the way that they interact with how do they interact with people? In the way that they look and in the way that they provide shelter for people, they're much better than most housing that we see being introduced mostly. So this is a bridge that was designed and it actually works now and people use this bridge every day. It was designed using metal. So again, 3D printing is not only limited to printing plastic, you can actually design metal and you can design it to the point where you can print stuff that will not be broken down easily. And this is a video of a house being built, of a house being printed. So everything in this house was 3D printed. So instead of a filament, or instead of a plastic filament to print the house is printed using concrete. So it has the same effect as the houses that we live in right now. And it takes less than 24 hours to build. So in a week, we can literally build a whole village if we have more than one 3D printer. And that is what it looks like inside. And the houses do not only come in this size, they can be bigger or smaller depending on the company making them or depending on the requirements of the person that lives in the house. So they've already started building these houses in America and a lot of people are actually living in these houses already and they are terribly inexpensive compared to the houses that people buy, and it is a much better option than being homeless or than being in a house that does not grant you the dignity that everybody deserves.
And just add on that, in the design, the ducts and the electricity ducts are already in there. So it's printed, so you only need a plumber and an electrician to come and wire it up and pipe it up. Then you can live there.
Yeah. So the idea here is to create an entire village using 3D printed homes for people in low-income households, for people in low-income communities. So these houses will probably be something that we'll be seeing more than once. So printing for life. So this is a topic that has become quite controversial. So if you're like me and you watch a lot of creepy YouTube videos about how human beings are being cloned and we're being replaced by robots, this might creep you out a bit. But what the idea here is 3D printed can be used to not only improve the standard of living, but it can be used to improve the health of people. And it can be used to actually prevent things from happening, such as heart attacks, as I will show you just now. So 3D printing has been used to create artificial limbs for not only humans, but for animals. So these artificial limbs are very different from the ones that we have right now because they are created to suit the person wearing it, similar to the clothes that are 3D printed. If you 3D print a limb, for example, it will be measured against your body and everything will be scanned according to how your leg would have to stand or how it would have to look and all of that. So we actually have artificial limbs that are actually better than the ones that we have now, that are better to walk in, that are better that look better than the ones that are being produced now, and that generally are more suited for the person wearing it as an individual instead of having a one-size-fits-all artificial limbs as we see. So 3D printing is also used to scan for expected mothers. So what happens here is blind mothers that are pregnant get to actually scan a 3D the 3D sauna, thank you, of their babies. So because they cannot see the picture on the sonogram, what they get to see is they get to feel and interact with what their baby looks like inside of them. So this gives them an experience that they would otherwise not be able to have had it not been for 3D printing.
That's 26 weeks.
Oh yeah. So not only this, 3D printing is also used to create skin for burn victims. So a lot of the time, whenever we have burn victims, what typically happens is that skin is taken out of one section of your body and put in another. In a documentary that I watched, they took out skin from the rear end and they put it on the face, and the pigmentations were quite different. And the person did say that although they were able to walk better like down the street, they did have problems because they were quite the differences are quite obvious. What 3D printing does now is replicate the face that you have and create a skin tone very similar to the skin tone on your face and create features that are very similar to this one side of your face. Let's assume you are burnt on one side or you have an injury on your face on one side. It creates an exact replica of what the other side of your face looks like. So when you actually do put on your mask, your 3D printed mask, it looks much better than what has been done previously. So there's also printed medication for headaches and all of that. So instead of going to the pharmacy or going to a doctor in order for you to get a prescription, what happens typically is you get a prescription from your doctor for tablets that you have to take, and you can print them out from the comfort of your own home. So this is something that they're actually researching. So that means that people will no longer have to go to the pharmacist in order for them to get tablets, but they can print them from home. I know somebody said to me if they had to print antidepressants, for example, that would mean that they would have too much of their antidepressants, and that could be dangerous. With the 3D printing machines that they're actually developing now, they limit the number of pills that you're allowed to print. So you cannot print more than 30 if you're meant to have 30. So you don't have a surplus that you don't need. And it is great because, well, you don't have to meet people if you don't want to meet people. If you have a headache and you're trying to avoid people, you can print it just from home. And it's more convenient and it's safer for people to use. So hopefully we'll have 3D printed, we can have 3D printers that will actually allow us to print our own medications, and we won't have to go through seeing people when we don't feel like it. So in this video that I will show you now is something that is being done in most universities where they 3D print organs in order for them to replicate, to allow the students to replicate surgeries and other processes that they will encounter when they actually in the medical field or when they're doctors. So in this university, they have fabricated artificial organs, and then they put them in there, and the students will actually get a replica of what a human body will look like when they're actually performing a surgery. What this means is that there are less chances of students, of the graduates when they're doctors actually, of actually making mistakes on people, because they have had practice on things that mimicked actual human beings and actual human bodies. And these feel, and I'm not sure if they smell like actual, I would hope not, but these feel like actual human organs. And all students, so it looks exactly like it would look typically when a person is performing a surgery. So this is what students are actually, this is what universities are doing. And by a university producing something like this, it is actually much cheaper than having to buy one. So imagine if we don't have medicine. Imagine if birds had printed their own stuff. They would actually have a cadaver, is it called? Got it. They would have one for each of their students that would ensure that each of their students actually has hands-on experience when they're actually practicing for surgeries. And having a 3D printer means you can print as much as you possibly want or as much as you possibly can. So that's what they're doing. Not only are they printing imitations of human organs, but they're actually printing organs that are supposed to go into human bodies and actually function like the organs that we have now. So in this last video that I'll show you. So they have created lungs that replicate the lungs that we have now. And the idea is to actually put these lungs on a human being and to see if they will actually work. So we can actually go from a state where we have to borrow body parts from other people to actually creating body parts on our own through 3D printing. Of course, you cannot 3D print your own lungs at home and perform your own surgery. I think that would be quite dangerous, but this is what most hospitals and most medical universities are doing. So this is something that is quite interesting and that most people are doing. And again, when printing is done for medical practices, especially if it's something that will be put in a human being, is they don't print plastic or imitation. They will print according to cells. So they will get a sample of your own cells, and then they will print organs according to the cells that you gave them. So it is not an inferior object that your body will reject. This is something created from your own cells. And it's only been 3D printed and put inside you to work. So we would literally get to a stage where we don't die, because every time we have a heart attack or you die, we're just getting you hot. And we can all live forever, finally. So I'll skip this quickly. So why 3D printing? 3D printing is quite accessible. It is a one-step manufacturing process, so that means it doesn't have to go from one person to the next person to the other. It makes it quite quick. It makes it quite quick and easy for projects to be finished, and it also allows for creativity, meaning whatever you want to design, you can actually make. So long gone are the days when you have to write something down and ask for permission in order for you to actually print it. You can actually print it yourself, and people can actually play around with everything that they want to do when it comes to 3D printing. The possibilities are absolutely endless. Again, most importantly, maybe it is eco-friendly. So now again, they still research about how friendly it actually is, but it has proven to be less harmful than the way of manufacturing that we are into right now. Now, the question that people ask typically, is it all too good to be true? And the answer is quite possibly, but what isn't really? So the question is, there's always a problem of property rights. If I create a dress, for example, will I be okay with seeing someone else in the dress that I printed? Is that not my property? Or blurring the line between what is intellectually my property and intellectually somebody else's property can be quite difficult in 3D printing, because again, there are no rules and regulations and policies yet governing this type of printing. So there is a blurred line between what is wrong, what is right, and what is shareable, and basically whose ownership goes into. So there's issues of affordability, especially if you want to build houses and stuff. You cannot just build a house all by yourself, so that would be quite expensive. So what are the possibilities, quickly, just to wrap up? So if you think about UJ, the possibilities can include creating material, printing material that will be needed by students, that will be afforded by students, that students can use on an everyday basis, and that students will interact with, not only when they're using them for class, but even before class, when they're printing this stuff. My teacher used to say, if you make something, chances are you will never forget it. If I made a heart, I would have never forgotten what all the other stuff is. So imagine having students that will actually create stuff. It will be easier for them to retain the information and all of that. So that's a great thing when we talk about 3D printing in education, or just in general. It is quite important for innovative research. So 3D printing allows us to actually have new topics to research and to actually interact with when it comes to developing and where we want to see ourselves in the future, possibly. There's also greater participation in a way for the fourth industrial revolution to some extent. My friends and I were talking about bridging the gap between this current revolution and the previous revolution, about how we constantly left behind. And with 3D printing, we can actually maybe be 2 steps ahead, not of everyone, but skip a couple of steps just to make sure that we caught up with the fourth industrial revolution and to actually be on the same page as everyone else. So it's research, it's interaction, and hopefully helping us get to a point of fourth industrial revolution where everyone else is. And afterthought, oh my, 3D printing is highly experimental. Again, it can be a tool that is used to address a lot of issues. It is a tool that drives research, so it's very important for us to interact with 3D printing in terms of research. It's very important for us to actually explore 3D printing further, not just for our personal use, but for use in terms of universities, in terms of school, and in terms of the communities that we're trying to build. So the fact that it can be used in a wide variety of sections or sectors means that we have all the opportunities in the world to actually explore it. And that's exactly what we must do, especially considering that we are a university and we're all about innovation and research. So it's a good place to start. Thank you. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Wow.
I
sorry.
close off, and I just want to say,
Apologize.
as large as we go on macro level with printing houses in cities, it has now gone on micro level. The first molecular to print molecules in pharmaceutical developments are already out, as you've seen, and the first 3 DNA printers are already on the market.
Wow, that was such an amazing presentation. Can we please give them a round of applause? That was Ms. Ayanda Bui as well as Dr. Arno Low. Do we have any questions that we would love to ask them after hearing everything about 3D printing? Any questions? Yes, we have one in front.
How can we get involved in, thanks. I want to ask, how can we get involved in a project where, like, they're building houses? I know that you mentioned that it's not very available in South Africa at the moment, but if I want to start a project, or is there anyone already busy with that, or like not necessarily like my own house, even if it's for the poorer community, or like how can we get involved with that at all?
Thank you. I think the best way would be to contact NGOs, to contact engineering companies, and to see what's already happening in industry, because they're ready with this. I know agricultural developments are already busy with 3D printing, so it's a matter just of networking with the right people, then to get yourself involved in that, and then of course get the sponsorships or get the plans and do it, make it a university project.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, do we have any more questions? We have a question there at the back.
Thank you. Hello. I just wanted to ask, in terms of like a student rollout for using like facilities for, say, like 3D printers and everything, would that come as a cost for the students, or does it become a cost for the university? And like where and when could we like perhaps see this?
Right. There's already a few departments who have 3D printers. So the cost involved isn't much. The actual software we use to print or to run the 3D printer works out the cost per 15 millimeters. And at this stage for this filament, it costs about 3 cents per 15 millimeters. So I think really to put that bit of cost into something tangible, which is reusable, also works. What we're doing now with Simone, it is nearly done, a 4th IR online program. And the suggestion there was to, let's say that they're going to print a little artifact, maybe a space figure, or students want to build a robot. It might not be a workable robot, but they might use it. Then it's added as an award, as a badge at the end of each module. The student downloads that G code and goes to wherever they'll know where to 3D print. Because nowadays, I see there's certain postnets and internet cafes that also do 3D printing. And then they don't mind to pay at all. And so they can either do it themselves. It is not like we're doing welfareization of 3D printing. It's more in here for the sake of tangible objects. So, and if you've done it once, you can use it over and over. The plastic is biodegradable, but I mean, we're not throwing it away. So, okay.
All right, I'll take one last question. Do we have one? All right, ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Ms. Ayanda Bui as well as Dr. Arno Low. I think at this stage we can comfortably say that the world as we know it will soon be a thing of the past. Please give them a round of applause. Our next speakers, ladies and gentlemen, are actually students from the Techno Lab. We have Wesley and Brandon, who are going to tell us more about the Techno Lab and its offerings. Please give them a round of applause. I'd like to remind you of the hashtag that we are using on social media, hashtag WinterSchool4IR. For any interactions or to follow the conversation, please use that hashtag. I'd also like to remind you of the exhibition area outside. We have Microsoft that has brought through some resources that will further educate us about the fourth industrial revolution as well.
On the laptop. Should work. Just before we put it on, I just want to get to the PR first. You can. Okay.
And just for introduction, I'm Estelle Mombach. I'm admin assistant at the Techno Lab. Unfortunately, my manager, Mr. Sikwele, is sick today, so he can't be here. So I just quickly want just to give you an introduction of the Techno Lab. Techno Lab is basically part of engineering and the built environment. Technolab is part of engineering and the built environment. We are basically the window to engineering. We do workshops for school learners, basically, especially for school learners. Sometimes we help university students also, but our main focus is school learners. We do workshops and programs for them to introduce them to engineering. And our aim is basically to make children interested in engineering so that they know what is engineering, because there's a lot of people that come and study engineering at UJ and then they realize it's not really what they want to do. So we try to give everybody on school level an opportunity to come and experience engineering. One of our big projects that we had just 2 weeks ago, we had 17 girls out of Soweto that came for the whole week. They stayed here at UJ. They were here for 7 days. And we showed them all the different opportunities that's available, all the different schools. We went to Doornfontein, we went to the airplane factory. We showed them different activities, what engineering is all about. Now, our main program that's running at the Technolab is robotics. And I've got two students, Wesley and Brandon, and they're fourth-year engineering students in electrical engineering, and they will tell you a bit more about our robotics program. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so we have 4 robots with us today. We have our line following robot, and the objective of this robot is actually more used in a factory setting. So there is an unfortunate side to robotics, obviously the job loss side, but this would take factory sort of jobs. But the jobs that a robot like this would take are like dangerous jobs, having to do heavy lifting at extreme heights, trying to get crates off of big shelves and all of that. So as we can show you here, the robot is programmed to follow the line, get to a point, pick up the supposed parcel with the arm, and then go to a endpoint where it would then drop off the parcel. Yeah. Hold it. There we go. Okay, sorry. Unfortunately, these things do not always agree with me. There we go. So as you can see, it is automated to go following a specific path and then reach the end of the track. Unfortunately, it's just the lighting here that struggles with the lines. Okay, then we have some other robots. We have the master and slave robot. This works on radio transmission. So I know people that are like watching through the camera couldn't see it, but the camera guy moved the camera without having to be there. It was great. It's ideally how this would work as a controller and then a robot, but this works on similar to your phone, where you turn your phone, your screen orientates into the direction that you've turned it. That's how this controller works. So as you can see, if you lean forward, it will go forward, lean sideways, it will turn, and back, it will go back. It's a great little fun thing, especially for kids. All right, and then we have the balancing robot. Yeah, you explain.
So the balancing robot has also got an accelerometer in it, which is the device that, like Brandon said, is also in your phone, that when you rotate your screen rotates as well. Now, the purpose of this robot is for stabilization. So the robot must balance itself. And if we push it in any way, it has to restabilize its balance. And generally, so yeah, we go. And if Brandon pushes it, it restabilizes itself as well. So this is more challenging than our Africa bot, and we give this to students who have done the Africa bot before, because they've done it before. We wanted to give them something more challenging to do. And in industry, with robots that are being produced, such as Asimo by Honda, this is one of the first steps in developing robots, is the stabilization of the robots. Yeah.
Then we have one last one. I just need to rearrange.
Oh, you want to flip it up? Okay. So the next one we're going to show you is a maze bot. So the objective of this robot is that we put it in a maze, like a traditional maze. It's got dead ends, and there's only got one start position and one finish position. And this robot's going to go through the maze, and it's going to memorize the paths it's taken until it reaches the end of the maze. Once it reaches the end of the maze, we'll place the robot back at the beginning of the maze, and it will go straight to the end of the maze, and it will also take the shortest path. So the robot is programmed to prioritize left turns. So it's what we call a left-hand wall technique. So when it gets to a T-junction, it'll always take a left turn. And if it gets 3 left turns, it's going to record that as a U-turn and delete that in memory. So if you just- This is also another, after students have done the AfricaBot challenge, they take on this robot and then the balancing robot. Put in the video quick. Okay. Okay. I just want to show you a video quick of some of the lecturers from the engineering department speaking of our AfricaBot challenge, and then showing students that have participated in the AfricaBot challenge.
I'm Dr. Johnson Carroll. I teach here in the Faculty of Engineering in the Built Environment at UJ.
My name is Zintle Ngomezulu, and I'm a lecturer here at the University of Johannesburg.
My name is Dr. Dion Sabater, and I'm a lecturer here at the University of Johannesburg.
Participating in the AfricaBot 2017 competition is a great opportunity to get a taste of how engineering really works.
If you are a high school learner and you think engineering is massively difficult, then I am here to tell you that you don't need to feel like that.
You could be building your very own AfricaBot to enter the AfricaBot 2017 challenge.
Engineering is fundamentally about problem solving, and the robotics competition introduces a variety of problem solving opportunities.
By participating in AfricaBot 2017, you get to be exposed to the different fields of engineering, and that might help you decide in which field you want to focus on.
Check out this robot. This thing is awesome. It rolls, it's got a robot arm. You're going to be teaching it how to do different tasks to complete the challenge.
Building the AfricaBot robot will introduce you to basic concepts in mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and computer programming, which is valuable in degrees such as electronic engineering, mechatronics, computer science.
We all know that stereotype that women can't do technical things, which I find is not true. When you're doing engineering now, you not only get to do the physical technical stuff, there's other things like software engineering.
Competing in the AfricaBot 2017 challenge will expose you to technologies that you will encounter again in your undergraduate studies and give you an advantage over the other students in that you've already seen these things and it will help you complete your practicals in less time. The AfricaBot 2017 Maze Challenge, while not impossibly difficult, is not as easy as it looks.
Robotics and automation is one of the most exciting engineering fields, branching from everything from cutting edge, putting people on Mars and the moon, all the way to making individuals in our society's lives better.
Engineering is one of the few disciplines that has major impact in almost all aspects of life. You not only get to build things like these, which are fun and you can play with, but you also get to impact in people's lives in a positive way.
Over here I have a sample robot of what you could be building to enter the AfricaBot 2017 challenge. It is a line-following robot based on the popular Arduino platform. This device can be programmed in C++ or using a variety of other programming languages, including graphical programming languages, using either your computer, a tablet, or a cell phone. The Arduino Uno is not a robot in itself. If we plug it into the robotic shield, it allows you to interface the various motors and sensors to build a complete robot which can take part in the AfricaBot 2017 challenge. By competing in the Maze Challenge, you will learn critical skills in robotics that will help you in your undergraduate degree.
If you feel like you can't do it or you think it's difficult, that is not true.
Okay. So in terms of the fourth industrial revolution, so the robots will heavily be influencing this. Let it be from being your cashier when you go to the supermarket, or let it be when you're going to a warehouse and you need something delivered to you. And I understand that there is a stigmatism against robots taking jobs and everything, but unfortunately, this has been a recurring factor in all of the industrial revolutions, that job loss of jobs that are either dangerous or that are very labor intensive have always been replaced. Take it when the steam engine came in, a lot of jobs for horse breeding went out because you didn't need it anymore. So, and this isn't actually a bad thing because it allows people to pursue rather their passions rather than just taking a job that they have to. So with robots, it also allows us to do development in helping us teach children. You can end up with robotic teachers, computer teachers. You can end up with robots helping you at home, allowing to get things for you if you are unable to. It really just increases your quality of life when implemented fully.
So yeah, just to touch on what Brandon said, the whole point is what we're trying to do is we're trying to get students more interested into engineering and into computer science and IT. With the fourth industrial revolution around the corner, it is imperative that we have more students enrolling into these fields of study. Rather, because with the fourth industrial revolution around the corner, we'll need more engineers, we'll need more IT specialists, and there will not the fourth industrial revolution will be replacing jobs such as shelf packers and people who are shelf packers, conveyor belts, things like that. So with this will introduce them into the field of engineering and computer science and allow them to get an idea of what engineering and IT is all about and if this is really what they want to do. It will also help them, and it's not only with regards to, building little robots that can pack a shelf, for example. Computers are all around us. We use them in surgery nowadays with assistive robotic surgery as well. Cars, the simplest cars nowadays have got at least 30 computers in them. So the opportunities in this field are limitless and endless, and there's only growing. The opportunities are only expanding as each day goes by, as more advancements in technology are made, and more advancements in research are made in these fields. Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gents, can we please give Brandon and Wesley a round of applause? Do we have any questions that we'd love to ask them? Yes, we've got a question there at the back.
Thanks very much. Very interesting work. I'm from the Industrial Design Department. For us to try and include or incorporate the electronics programming side into our curriculum, we're finding it, there's obviously with the cost of the Arduinos and things like that, it's very accessible, but trying to get some sort of sponsorship, sort of corporate involvement in the hardware and electronic side of things. How do you guys run the robotics competition? Is that sort of subsidized? Is it funded? Or do the people or do the students or prospective students have to sort of contribute money?
I must tell you, at the moment, we're still also struggling. The Technolab is at the moment a bit in a problem. We had Michael Ettershank, you see most of his programs that was advertised, he started it. And unfortunately, due to funds, we also had to let him go. We couldn't, his salary wasn't available to pay him anymore. So we are basically in the same situation. We try to get sponsorship from outside companies because most of our programs are run for kids that can't afford really to pay it. So we have at the moment about 6 students that's still busy building robots every Saturday, but not all of them can afford it. So it is a bit of a struggle every day, but we try, we see the need in it. So we are in discussions to see if we can get some more funds for that.
Hopefully, sort of the interest from Microsoft outside with bringing all of their gadgets, maybe there's sort of corporate opportunities for them to maybe sort of link as well. Thank you very much.
All right, do we have any more questions? All right, we'll just take a 5-minute break just to give Dr. Arno Low some time to come back, seeing that it was a bit of a short presentation. So if you would like to serve yourself some tea and coffee, you're welcome to do so. We also have an exhibition outside to further educate you about the Fourth Industrial Revolution, so you're welcome to do that as well. To those that are streaming online, if you do have any questions, you're welcome to send them. Just use the hashtag WinterSchool4IR, and after every speaker has done their presentation, then I will try to pose the questions to them just to accommodate you as well. So we will take a 5-minute break, and once Dr. Arno Low is back, then we will continue with the program.